In today's video, we're going to bring you the ultimate guide to purchasing your 510 thread battery. Hi everyone, I'm Dan Hoff, Chief Operating Officer of Honeystick. And in today's video, we're going to bring you the ultimate guide to purchasing your 510 thread battery. Now, before I even jump into any of this video, I want to let you know that this video is sponsored by vapebat.com, which is one of our authorized retailers. Now, to be completely comprehensive and objective, I couldn't just feature Honeystick batteries, which is what we sell, and I needed to bring on some other brands to give you a full video and some of the hot batteries for 2023. So VapeBat stepped up to the plate, sent us a bunch of batteries, which I'm going to do to break down exactly what the hottest stick batteries are. Now, even though stick batteries have been around for quite some time, they are still the most popular and highest selling design. However, over those years, the technology has evolved greatly, and these little batteries, outside of having different cool colors and shapes, have new specs that you need to be aware of before you make that decision to purchase your battery. So guys, before we dive in, like and subscribe to this channel. Make sure that you give us a shout out, and if you have any other video ideas, make sure to drop them in the comments below. Now, without further ado, let's jump into stick batteries. When you're purchasing your 510 thread stick battery, the first big distinction between stick batteries is whether they are auto draw, which means they don't have a button, or they have a button. Now, when they have a button, that means in order to vaporize, you have to push and hold this button down throughout the duration that you're inhaling on it to achieve vaporization of your cartridge. The auto draw batteries, now they don't have a button, and when you put the cartridge on there, the 510 thread cartridge, then all you have to do is inhale and the battery automatically will activate and vaporize the cartridge, so it more so simulates a natural smoking experience, to whereas the one with the push button is more vapor assisted. So that one fact alone can give you a whole different avenue of what type of a 510 thread stick battery you should go for. So that in 510 thread stick batteries is the major category distinction. Now, auto draw batteries 4 years ago, they're kind of, I don't want to say flaw, but shortcoming is that they were dialed into one power voltage. They did not have preheat functionality, which would, if you had a cartridge that was, let's say, much thicker viscosity and you couldn't draw through it, or it was really cold and that oil solidified in there, it could be clogged and not vaporize. However, the modern buttonless batteries do have those features built in where you could have different voltage intensities, which we'll get into what that means. And they also have preheat functionality. So if you are an auto draw person, don't be discouraged on some of those past things you might read on blogs or whatever that they clog up and don't work. Just make sure that you look for those features and specs when you're selecting your auto draw battery. Now, the next big thing that separates out 510 thread batteries is you're going to hear this term called variable voltage. Now, what variable voltage means is that you can basically take and adjust the intensity of your battery, which means it's going to vape hotter, produce more vapor, and give you a more intense hit. Now, also, certain cartridges might require a little bit more power depending on what their resistance level is. Now, don't worry about big terms if you're new to vaping, but just know that variable voltage will help you select a different power level, to whereas non-variable voltage batteries will have you dialed into whatever voltage it comes with from the factory, which if it's perfect, it's simple, fantastic, but some people like to have that option to kick the power up or kick the power down. Now, the big thing within variable voltage is most people, they want this option because they buy different types of cartridges and, well, they taste good or they have different personal preferences. So I would say more than likely, if you're new to vaping, you probably want to go ahead and take that option of having a variable voltage battery. Now, the manufacturers will specify that on their packaging and usually in the web features and specs detail, but the most common type of variable voltage is actually just a click pattern on the button. Is when the vaporizer's on, which it's standard that you click it 5 times. When it's on, you would click this button 3 times to cycle through different voltages. Now, usually different vaporizers will give you a option to have 3 different temperature settings that are pre-programmed into the vaporizer, or newer vaporizers give you an option where you have a bottom twister dial, which really lets you hone in on where your voltages are within the battery. So if you really want to go on a minute detail level as to what voltage you want to be at, you probably want to steer yourself towards something that has lots of options, like 4 to 5 different temperatures that are pre-programmed, or you want to have a twister dial on your battery as one of those key features. Now, there are batteries that only have one set temperature, like this bee buzzing one, and people do still pick that up because it's just simple. Some people just don't want to mess with it, and you take it, you turn it on, you push it, you vape it, no multiple clicks, no figuring out what voltage it's on. It's just ready to rock and roll. So you want to see whether you have variable voltage or not. That's another key thing that you need to look for when you're selecting your vaporizer. The next thing that a lot of people do is it's sheer, size, weight, or shape is the outside look or feel of it. So let me show you what most of the options are when it comes to stick batteries. So you have standard stick batteries. Generally, they're about the same thickness. However, there's differences in the length of them, And for some people, when buying a vaporizer, yes, size does matter. So, for example, this Ooze Twist battery is a rather long twist battery, whereas this little battery is almost an inch shorter. So this is like a very small minimalistic battery, whereas this battery is much longer. So generally, you want to check that dimensions feature when you're shopping on the web to see what the product dimensions are, if this is an important factor for you. Now, there's all kinds of different textures and colors and feels. However, you also want to note that there's other shapes. So if you want a stick battery that's a little different, for example, our Honey Stick Quattro is actually the shape of a cube. So this won't roll off of a table. It's a little newer, and maybe it fits your style profile a little bit better. Now, you also have what the company Ooze came out with that's really popular, is these clear see-through batteries that are actually a lot thicker. So as you could see, here's a standard twist battery thickness that will, fit an 11 millimeter cartridge, and it's got some extra girth on it. So, but what that's really good for is that if you're vaping and purchasing 2-gram cartridges that are naturally thicker, you're going to see that this just lines up really, really well. And it's like they're meant for each other. So what type of cartridge you're vaping can also really determine what type of a stick battery that you purchase. So make sure that you look at those dimension specs when you're selecting your 510 thread battery, because that's also really important. Now, sticking with our fact of shape, we also have this Honey Stick Trigon, which is a triangular shaped stick battery. So it's also not going to roll off of a table. It's definitely going to be newer age. It's completely flush. And it's just something new and cool in terms of size and shape, and in terms of length. It's about the size of your average twist battery. So really take a look, because now it's not just having something that looks like an actual writing utensil. The game has changed and evolved, and a lot of these manufacturers have stepped up. So let's say that you want to really start looking into these features, and you've decided that maybe you want voltage select and you want a twist battery. One thing that you have to look at is you have to look at the voltage ranges on these batteries. So for example, this cool colored purple Honey Stick Twist battery, it actually has a really big range. It goes from 2 volts all the way up to 4 volts, and in between there you can twist and really micro hone in on where you need to be. And some cartridges that have low resistance levels or things like that really optimally run on a specific voltage setting. So then having one of these twist batteries is really useful. To whereas I pick up, let's say, this Toke Buddy, and if we look at the range there, it runs from 3.3 volts. So if you have something that you like to run really low, or it's really low resistance, and 3.3 volts is already too high, then you need to look at those specs in the descriptions or on the packaging to see how it runs, because then that's what's going to let you hone in on your optimal vaping experience when it comes to your 510 thread battery. So another spec that people look for is how this battery is charged. Now I know that this is a minute detail because the factories that you purchase them from or the brands all make sure that you can recharge these batteries. However, if you're like me, you're always losing chargers. So you want to think ahead. In general, when you see that a USB charger is screwed into the battery when it's sold in a package, then you know that that battery can more than likely only be charged through the 510 port. And this is on this Toke Buddy battery that's got a really cool soft touch texture to it, and a really nice ribbed dial, so you could really get your fingernails in there and really micro hone in on what you want to select. So if it screws in here, this charger is the only thing that you could charge it with. So if you forget it at home, or you're traveling, or you lose it, then you need another one, because this is the only way it's going to charge. To whereas there's other batteries, like let's say our Elf stick battery that comes in this metallic finish, that has a micro USB cable. So you can use a standard micro USB cable on there. Now, if you're a person who doesn't have much time to charge it and you want to charge it up in the car or something like that, you have this ooze transparent battery that I showed you before with this cool transparent shape. It actually has a USB-C rapid charging station right there, so you can use your USB-C cable and it's going to charge a lot faster than a lot of the standard batteries. So if we take that to a whole other extreme, we have our Trigon that has that USB-C charging port, but it also has the capability to charge through the 510 port as well. So really, you can roll around with the 510 charger, and if you forget it or lose it, you can always hit it with a standard charger there on the USB-C. So that also helps you out. Now, another thing that is important when you're selecting your 510 thread battery is texture of the battery. Now, the key differentiators on texture is you have this cool like polycarbonate acrylic semi-transparent texture that's really smooth. You have straight metallic textures that are brushed like this ooze extended battery here, that are going to give you much more of that kind of metallic feel. You have soft touch coated batteries, like this ooze is the same as the other one, but it comes in this soft touch coat to where it feels like it has a layer of rubber on it or something, to where it's got this kind of ruggedy feel, and it's a little bit softer than dealing with the standard metals. And then you have like different finishes that are brushed or painted over thick flat black like this that kind of have an in-between feel. Now, really the last thing when we're talking about 510 thread batteries that you're only going to find in the specs and you can't really tell by looking at it is the capacity of the battery that it comes with. So the capacity of the battery is measured in this statistic called mAh, or MAH, which stands for milliamp hours. And the higher that number is, the more vaping you can get done and the higher power you can run on it for longer on one charge. So in between charges, how much vaping action do you get and at how much power? So generally these stick batteries run between 280 and like 650 on the really high end of milliamp hours. So if you know that you're charge it at night and you're a heavy duty vapor and you run your cartridges at an intense level and you can't get home to a charger or get this pin on a charger, you need something that's definitely stacked in the milliamp hour area, and you can't buy something that's a 280 or a 300 milliamp hour. A lot of people say, well, I guess it's by the size of the battery, you know, because it's a bigger, thicker battery, it must have more mAh. But it's not always the case. Like this Ooze one is our longest battery, and when you look at the back of it, it has like a 320 milliamp hour battery, which is kind of in the higher end of the middle range, to whereas this Honey Stick Twist battery that's short but, you know, kind of heavier has a 500 milliamp hour battery, I think the packaging said. And you have this Ooze battery that's, you know, like I said, it's also, you know, short. It's also got a bigger, bulkier battery. It's got a 500 milliamp hour battery, so you're definitely going to get more charge, more vaping action there. And this Trigon battery also at the higher end at 500 milliamp hour batteries. If you want something in between like this Quattro, it's still nice and light, and it has a 400 milliamp hour battery. So when you're picking a stick battery and it's a 510 thread, these are kind of the important things that you have to consider, that when you're reading through all those online descriptions on what your perfect battery is where you need to be to make the correct purchasing decision. Now you say, oh, it's a stick battery, it's 510 thread, they're all the same. As I showed you now, there's lots of difference between, number one, the aesthetics, the capacity, the electronics, the power, the options, and even just the general functionality of the entire vaping experience, that if you just puff on it and it draws, or whether you have to push a button. So take these things into mind. Make sure if this video was helpful in you selecting a 510 thread battery, that you like this video, hit that like button, it helps us out. Subscribe to this channel for good vape content, and make sure to check out this large selection of everything on the VapeBat website. You can use a special promo code I give my subscribers, which is Honey420, for 20% off on our site, www.vapehoneystick.com, where you can find all the nice Honey Stick merch. And it's also usable on the vapebat.com, our authorized retailer for all this cool stuff. Lots of brands, lots of things to go out over there. Hope it helped. Remember, when you're 510 thread vaping, make sure that you're doing it responsibly. Thank you for tuning in, and until next time, stay safe.